picture this. It's one of the most dramatic moments in all of history. After hours of agony on a cross, Jesus speaks one final, really cryptic phrase before his death. Now, in the original Greek, it's just a single word. But oh man, it has ignited centuries of debate. So let's dive in and unpack the layers of meaning hidden inside this one powerful word.
So that word is Tetelestai. For 2,000 years, Christians have been wrestling with this question. What exactly was finished at that moment? Was it a financial debt, a mission, or was it something else entirely?
The whole debate really boils down to two very different interpretations. The first one, which is really common in Protestant thought, is that tetelestai means paid in full. The debt for sin is completely settled. The second, which is central to Catholic theology, argues that Jesus was declaring the Passover sacrifice, the one he started at the Last Supper, was now complete. Two views, one word, and they lead to profoundly different places.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. We're going to explore both of those meanings, we'll dig into the linguistic evidence, and then we'll see what happened after the cross. And then we're going to uncover a hidden clue from the Last Supper and what some people call the hunt for the fourth cup. Finally, we'll see why getting this one word right is so incredibly important.
All right, first up, let's talk about the popular paid in full interpretation. This view has some seriously powerful theological implications for how a person is saved.
So if you're looking at it from this perspective, if Jesus paid the debt for our sin in full, well, that means our salvation was totally secured at that very moment. For theologians like Ron Rhodes, this is the absolute cornerstone of the gospel. It means the work of redemption is done, finished. Nothing more can be added by us, not good works, not penance, not some kind of post-death purification like purgatory. The whole penalty for sin has been paid, which offers believers this incredible assurance of where they stand with God.
But is that the only way to understand this word? There's another school of thought that really challenges the linguistic foundation for paid in full. And they suggest it might not be as solid as it seems, and that the context, well, it might be pointing in a completely different direction.
So the main argument you hear all the time is that tetelestai was this common term stamped on ancient tax receipts and business documents, and it meant a debt was paid in full. It sounds like a slam-dunk case, right?
Well, not so fast. Catholic apologist Trent Horn is one of many who calls this whole idea a biblical urban legend. He argues that when you actually look at the evidence, the claim just kind of withers.
See, when researchers actually examined ancient Greek receipts, they found the word used to mean paid in full is often a completely different word or sometimes just a vague abbreviation. The root of tetelestai itself, teleo, it just means to finish or to complete. For instance, ancient sources used it to talk about completing a sculpture or piece of art, not necessarily settling a financial account.
Okay, so beyond the linguistics, there's a big theological question. If everything needed for our salvation was truly finished on the cross, then how do we explain all the crucial stuff that happened after Jesus said that word?
I mean, the Bible itself points to some absolutely essential moments in our salvation that happened after the crucifixion. St. Paul, for example, says we are raised for our justification. It was only after the resurrection that Jesus gave the apostles the power to forgive sins. And the book of Hebrews, it describes Christ's work as continuing right now through his high priesthood in heaven.
And on top of that, the Bible is really clear that while Christ's sacrifice is what atones for sin, our cooperation is still required. John's Gospel itself says that the one who does not obey the Son shall not see life. This suggests salvation isn't just some past event that we look back on, but an ongoing reality that we have to live in.
So, if it is finished doesn't mean paid in full, then what does it mean? Well, let's explore that second interpretation, and this one takes us all the way back to the Last Supper, in a fascinating little detail that a lot of people miss. Okay, so the Last Supper was a Jewish Passover meal, and that was a highly structured ritual. It involved 4 ceremonial cups of wine. Each cup had its own name and a really specific place in the liturgy, and it all built up to the 4th and final cup, the cup of consummation.
Now, scholars point out that Jesus institutes the Eucharist with the 3rd cup, the cup of blessing. But then he does something weird. He stops. He doesn't drink the 4th and final cup. He leaves the Passover meal unfinished. For a Jewish person at the time, this would have been unthinkable, kind of like a priest today just leaving out the words of consecration at Mass.
And he doesn't just do it, he announces it. He declares that he won't drink from the fruit of the vine again until he comes into his kingdom. This wasn't an accident, it was a deliberate, profound statement. He's hitting the pause button on the whole ceremony.
So, this totally sets the stage for the final act. In Gethsemane, he's praying for this cup, the cup of suffering, to pass from him. Then, on the cross, in his final moments, a Roman soldier offers him sour wine on a hyssop branch. Get this, the same kind of branch used to sprinkle the lamb's blood during the first Passover. Jesus drinks it, and only then does he say, "It is finished." So the "it" that's finished, it's the Passover itself. According to this view, by drinking that final cup on the cross, Jesus, the new Passover lamb, completes the sacrifice he began in the upper room. The Last Supper and the cross aren't two separate events, but two parts of one single sacrifice.
Okay, so this isn't just some neat historical factoid. This understanding is the theological bedrock for how Catholics understand their most central act of worship.
As the theologian Scott Hahn puts it, Calvary begins with the Eucharist, and the Eucharist ends with Calvary. It is all of one piece. That inseparable link, that's the key.
And look, this interpretation really shapes everything. It means the Mass isn't just a memorial service, but the making present of that one single Passover sacrifice. It explains why Jesus insisted his followers must literally eat the flesh of the Lamb of God, because in the original Passover, you had to eat the lamb to complete the ritual. And it frames our salvation not as a past transaction, but as an ongoing participation in the life of God through the Church.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If Jesus chose to begin the defining act of salvation not with a sermon or some grand decree, but around a table at a meal, what does that tell us about the meals we continue to share in his name? It suggests that the sacrifice wasn't just some historical event to be remembered, but a living reality to be entered into over and over again.